Podcasting 2.0 for March 11th, 2022, episode 77. Is that a mini pub in your pocket? Or are you just happy to see me? Or are you happy to be here at the board meeting of Podcasting 2.0, everything happening at podcastindex.org, the podcast namespace, and of course, all the creativity and the goo juice at podcastindex.social. Special live board meeting today. I'm Adam Curry here in the heart of the Texas Hill Country and in Alabama. The man who edits SQL by hand, my friend on the other end, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Dave Jones.
Live board meeting.
Live board meeting, one. Baby. Yeah. This is very exciting.
Yeah. Did anybody inform the secretary, or did people just start streaming in? She had no idea. It wasn't on the calendar.
That's pretty much the way it went down. So what we're talking about is today we are live with the live tag in the RSS feed, which means at least one podcast app, if you use it, would have notified you that the stream is live and you can play this in the app. And I believe there's also a chat in the app. Am I correct?
Chat, there's supposed to be. I think it's just an iframe. I'm actually scared to
hit
click this live button because I'm afraid it's going to come back on me and I'll and start playing, and it's going to freak me out.
Because my CurioCaster wasn't showing me the live item, so I just want to see. Okay, there it is, 77 live. Oh, okay.
He finally showed up.
So I just want to. Yeah, there it is.
Okay, there
it is.
Ooh,
77. Oh wow, this is trippy.
He finally showed up. Yeah, that's why I was afraid to hit it.
Now let me just boost myself just for good measure. Okay.
Yeah, break the internet. Stop it.
All right. So this kind of works. It was very confusing. I was using sovereign feeds to set up all the trigger stuff, the live items. And it was just like, what parameters do I need? And it was like, a chat room, and then the stream. It was just, oh man, I couldn't quite wrap my head around it. Then Stephen B created, and I also couldn't find the live item tag. It's like, where is it? I guess at the bottom.
Mm-hmm.
I expected that to be at the top for stupid reasons, I guess. In the just where it shows up just physically in the feed. I wasn't expecting it there, so I was like, I couldn't figure out what was being output. He sent me an RSS feed. I uploaded that one. Then I did the second one myself when we went live. Yeah. So
all by yourself.
Yes, Dave, all by myself. I'm proud of me. Come on, this is if I can't do it, who's going to be able to do it? I mean, I'm low on the rung.
Yeah, user friendly is not exactly how you would describe any of this stuff.
Well,
at all.
What's cool? I mean, I like the idea of setting it in advance and then publishing the feed. So okay, we'll be live at I think 12:30, but then you have to do that again when you go live, and that should just be a click. It's like it should know what to do, and I shouldn't have to go there and create a new episode, copy the old one. I mean, obviously, as this matures and it'll get better. It's just right now is kind of like, holy crap.
Honestly, the best part about this whole thing is that I can look at CurioCaster and remember what the show number is. Because that's a consistent problem with me.
Yeah. All right, man. We have a good guest today. We should bring him in pretty quickly. Is there anything we need to discuss before we get rolling? What are you working on? It seems like you've been still doing some cleanup stuff.
Well, I've been working on the aggregator. So we talked last week a little bit about how the aggregator that we brought into Podcast Index was the one was sort of the final revision of the aggregator from Freedom Controller.
Okay.
And so I took that, and it's a two-piece aggregator. It's got a polar, a feed puller, and then a feed parser, so that they can run parallel. And it's two separate JavaScript Node.js scripts. One's called Party Time, which is the parser. The other one is called Aggravate, which is the polar.
Right.
And so then we took those, dropped them into Podcast Index code base, and then modified the crap out of them to do the things that we needed to do for Podcast Index. Party Time works fine. It's messy because it was written as fast as humanly possible. So it's still messy, but Aggravate is based on the old Node request module, which has been deprecated now.
Node request module.
Node.js, they had like a built-in library for doing HTTP requests.
Oh, okay.
And it's been deprecated since I think Node 14, maybe. And they're on like, I think the current long-term stable is 16 now for Node.
So it was time.
Yeah, I mean, it was creaky even then. I think they deprecated it because it wasn't very reliable anyway.
You know, as a systems admin yourself, I mean, I know you do a lot of customer facing stuff in your real job, but also just all the, a lot of back end. Is this like a never ending thing? Just all these upgrades? Is it just?
Yes.
I mean, does it determine your life to a degree when, that's coming, and then I have to upgrade those 3 things because they have dependencies and all this stuff?
Yep. If you live and die by the EOL table, the end of life chart from every software vendor. That's
published ahead of time, so you know when a new version is coming.
Yeah. So like the most recent thing is in the day job is going through and purging Microsoft SQL Server 2014 out of everything and upgrading because that's about to go end of life.
Oh, that sounds really fun.
Oh, it's great. Yeah, oh boy, it's a party. Let me tell you. Bring beer. No, that got deprecated, and then it was never very reliable to begin with, even when it was actually supported.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've known for a while that I needed to rewrite this thing, and it's the simpler of the two. It's not simple, but it's simpler.
Now, when you say rewrite, does that mean a whole code rewrite or just
yes, from scratch?
Really?
Yeah.
Now, do you already have these? I'm just curious about the process. No one ever really asks developers, I guess, numbnuts like me. So you have your basic structure of the program. Are you going to literally start line 1 new file, or are you going to take that structure and do some adaptation, copy paste, basically?
This one was pretty much cargo new project, just blank file starting from scratch.
Wow.
That because it's not super complicated. When this software is all said and done, we're probably talking about 1,000 lines of code or less.
Oh, I could do that.
Why am I doing it?
Hand it over. I'll take care of it.
Yeah. But it's pretty much a straight, clean rewrite. There's really there's no porting going on because I don't like the way that the old thing was written anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And so what it's going to do is it's going to just accept the current version of the Polar. It does a query on the database to get a batch of feeds, and then loads them all up in an asynchronous. It just fires them all off asynchronously. Then as each one finishes its job, it determines what happened, what the HTTP status code was, what that means, and then it updates the database individually. So for every time the Polar kicks off, there's this flurry of database calls.
Okay.
And what I want to do is get rid of that. What I would like to do is do one select and get a whole bunch of feed IDs based on some criteria, load them up in a queue, and then have the Polar just grab all those feed IDs and URLs, grab the feed IDs and URLs from the queue, fire everything off and as they finish, write them to feed files. Then include the status code and e-tag and last modified header in the feed file. Then party time will come through and pick up those feed files.
Oh, right. You told me about this.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. 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 What kind of, you had me at Polar and party time. I mean, it's like you already had me there. But this will probably be, this will have an EOL itself. This will be dead when pod ping finally takes over.
But that I'm hoping selfishly that's not for a while, just so that I won't have to consider this a waste of my time. But,
well, I don't think it's ever a waste.
But oh god, this thing is fast.
Yeah.
Oh, it is so fast. It's my
how fast is it
so far? It is. Let's see. the last test I did last night was about 1,200 feeds a minute.
Wow. And how many parallel processes is that?
They're threads, so they're not, it's threaded. It's not
so
processed.
1,200 threads in a minute, basically?
Yeah. So, the way that the request library inside of Rust is so good. It is so top notch.
Hey, Dave, how good is it?
It's so good that I had to get a drink afterwards and maybe
have a smoke,
some dinner. Yeah, some dinner. No, it's fantastic because it like you can fire off 1,000 feeds, have it do its job, and the memory usage for the process never goes above about 100 megs. It's that good. I did 10,000 feeds the other day. I fired those off, and it got all 10,000 in about 2 minutes and 20 seconds.
Wow!
So this thing is this.
That's good. Yeah.
And this is all on a $5 a month Linode with a single CPU with non-dedicated shared CPU and only like a gig of RAM.
Right, $5 now, but after this Amazon purchase, 15.
Yeah,
It'll go up.
Akamai.
I'm sorry, Akamai. Yeah. And it's interesting. I have not received a single boost from anybody yet. I wonder why that is. I guess people don't care. I see them talking about it.
Are these boosts supposed to be showing up in the chat room?
No, but they would show up on Helipad because I have the boost monitor split. So they would show up, but I haven't seen any. And even the one that I sent earlier hasn't. I wonder if that's the LNP locking again.
LNP locking.
Yeah, but if too many people are trying to boost at the same time, then it locks and it waits and it does all kinds of stuff.
I'm going to try right now.
Yeah.
I'm going to send a boost.
But I sent myself a boost. And I know that's illegal in several states, but still, I self-boosted, and it didn't come through. And I was boosting from Curiocaster. Okay. Yeah, I got...
you got one?
Who was the... Oh, Darren O. All right, Darren O. 10,034 sats. One more than Comic Strip Blogger. Thank you for your courage. Yes, thank you.
No, Darren just outed himself. This is proof that Darren actually has sats in a wallet. He just never spends them.
And he sent it from Breeze. How about that?
I'm going to boost here.
Interesting.
See if I
interesting though. It came in, although it came in as Podcasting 2.0 episode 75.
I just sent a boost.
Okay,
100 sats.
I wonder if that's an old. Breeze is interesting because it's a full node and it really has to be running for it to be able to process payments. So if you just boost something and you close the app, then it probably won't send that boost or I guess Boostergram until much later. Oh, Breeze doesn't support live item. Of course. I'm sorry. What am I thinking? So he just grabbed a random episode. Well, okay. Why don't we share some of this with our guest, Dave, since we're going to be talking a lot about what's going on.
Sure.
The most recent developments that we've been working on for the namespace, and of course, all of that at podcastindex.social. Anyone who already has an account can send you an invite. It's under your preferences. So if anyone's looking for an account, looking to join, we just had to shut that off. I get these trending emails of what is trending on our Mastodon server. Somehow it knows this. Believe me.
Was it a bunch of political crap?
Oh yeah, all political.
No, that's no good.
Yeah. Welcome in. John Spurlock is here, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the board meeting, John.
Hey, nice to be here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we hear you good.
We can hear you.
Yes.
5 by 5, baby.
Yeah, we got you. We got you.
Sibilance.
John, I don't really even know your background.
Oh, it's the internet. That's how.
Yes, well, because I heard you were on. Were you on Podland recently? I think.
Yeah, I was on Podland last week.
Yeah, and I was like, wow, this guy has some history that I'm not aware of, and maybe others. I'd love to know a little bit about how you came to Podcasting 2.0 and what you were doing before.
Yeah, sure. So, I guess I've been doing software now for over 20 years in a full-time sort of capacity. So I still like writing software. I still like making stuff. That's kind of my MO. I worked at kind of a financial sort of background for a little bit, did some trading systems, integration, enterprise architecture and that sort of thing.
Yummy.
Yeah, exactly. Database stuff. I started out there, optimizing query plans, that sort of thing. But then I also did consulting with Java Linux stuff. Always have been doing that. Always been interested in the web. I actually worked for Google for a few years, working on Android, so the operating system there. So I've basically, I think what they call it now is a full stack developer.
Full stack plus, I guess, if you add Android onto it.
Yeah, I'm a generalist. Right. I kind of like it all still. And so what I decided is, Google has this IP thing where you can't really work on side projects without them being able to claim your IP.
Oh, so wait a minute. So you do get, first of all, you get your 20% still? Do you think that they still do that 20% of your time? You can do whatever you want?
Yeah, when I started there, they were still lip servicing that. And
yeah, I figured that had gone a long time ago.
Yeah, exactly. I can't badmouth it, though, because they did allow me, I think for the span of about 6 months, they let me do a project that was like totally unrelated.
Right.
So they did do it, but I think now it's a little different. I mean, they give you 200% of real-time work to do as well.
Right. And then, of course, all your base belong to us. So whatever you develop in that 20%, we own.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I've always done open source stuff on the side, and I've always had ideas. And so I'm in my early 40s now, and I've never done the cliche garage startup type thing. So I'm not in my garage. I'm in my, in the house, but I'm basically doing that now. So I quit Google, and then I kind of I always knew I'd do something in podcasting. I've been listening to podcasts since like literally the very beginning. Yeah. Adam, I think I've been following Dave Weiner and since the beginning. I used to be really into Pointcast. I don't know if you remember that.
Oh, no, dude, do I remember Pointcast? I loved how the whole Office network just went down the minute everyone's Pointcast was updating.
Yes, yeah. It was
that was
of death.
Just for the younger folks out there. Back in the day, we actually used this thing called screensavers. I don't think people use them anymore. We needed a screensaver because your screen literally would be burned in and ruined if you didn't opt for toasters and fish flying around on your screen. And it was, and it was actually a thing. We would buy screensavers. You'd go to the store, you buy a box with the fish. I think I remember buying the screensaver fish, the toasters. And the fish in a box.
It was on floppy. It was on
floppy disk, right? And you had to load it all up. And then all of a sudden came this thing, Pointcast, and it was like a checkbox. And I think a lot of Dave Weiner's inspiration was also he even called it checkbox news. You could say, okay, I want some sports, I want some finance, I want some food recipes, and it was just a version of an early it didn't run on RSS as far as I know, or that was too early probably. It just download whatever. How did that work? Does anyone know what the back end was?
I have no clue. I'm sure it was XML. That's the only thing. I'm sure it was XML back then.
Yeah, and so it would suck it in, but then we had maybe I don't know, like 40 or 50 people at the office, and we had a T1 line, 1 megabit per second. Which is, if you have that at home, you're on the phone with your cable company. So what's wrong with my speed here? And so when everyone's Pointcast would update, invariably at the top of the hour, boom, just everything shut down.
Yeah, it was classic. It was the right idea, just kind of too early from a wiring and piping point of view. Right. But they definitely had the right idea. And I've always been interested in that kind of like real time breaking sort of news, and RSS is like that. A lot of good podcasts are like that too. They kind of like try to get on top of, I guess it's the same transport, but the same sort of idea. Yeah. So I've always been interested in that. And the idea that you can program media is so interesting to me.
Yeah. Well, and in hindsight, kind of thinking back to those days, I think there was weblogs.com, which would take XML RPC requests.
That was Weiner's thing, right?
That was his thing. But how interesting is it that here we are 20 years later and we're using PodPing to let people know that the feed is updated. I mean, it's the same problem we're solving.
And the fact that it's still a feed is unbelievable to me. So I think that's kind of cool, actually. A lot of, back with my kind of enterprise architecture background, and I think even back with the feed, it's the RSS sort of committee itself, right? Immediately, the astronauts descended and were like, all right, Adam, right? We're going to do this right. We're going to redo it.
Yeah. Oh my goodness, that was horrible.
So this is like an existence proof that.
What'd you call them? Astronauts? What'd you call them?
Right, architecture astronauts.
Architecture astronauts. Were you an Adam guy as well?
No, but I mean, if you ever do any work with RSS, you are taking on a world of pain, right? Yes. So Dave knows this.
Yes.
And I think what the Atom guys they saw this immediately and they said, hey, what if we actually clean this up a bit? It would make developers' lives easier. But I think what they didn't realize is RSS was more about making the publisher's life easier.
Yes, and thank you for saying that, because even though my brain was fogging over looking at it, I know that I can look at my RSS feed, and I know I can, and I was stressed because we're starting and late and everything. I know that ultimately I can figure it out, and if push comes to shove, I can open it in Notepad and I can make a change. And that to me is you're absolutely right, from the publisher's perspective, that is key. And that's one of the successes, I believe.
Well, we've been talking about this for a long time, is that when it comes to RSS, the issues with RSS really come from it being loosely specified, and those are its strengths and its weaknesses in both ways.
Right.
Atom was is actually a fantastic idea, is a fantastic improvement to RSS, and if you could roll time back and sort of do things differently, Atom was the better format, but RSS, here RSS only defines, like in an item, it's like description and title, or it may even be just title. I mean, like the looseness of that specification it's kind of insane. But if you've been the good thing about it though is if you've been through that whole thing before, like if you've been through the world of a format war like that, and you've seen which one won and why it won, then it informs the next time you start to get involved in a project like Podcasting 2.0 or something like that. You bring that experience with you, and you're less of a hardliner about, we have to do it this way. We have to, because you realize that that's not what makes the format win. What makes the format win
is porn. Always. Porn always makes the format win.
Okay. Yes. Okay. That's whatever law that is, with the wiki,
yes.
That's Curry's law.
There you go.
But the really, what makes the format win is a combination of the spec being well done and the politics of what go on with it. There, you cannot separate those two things.
Right.
Because just having the best spec rarely is enough. You have to marry them two together.
That's why Podcasting 2.0 is so great, is that you guys are kind of a nice third party, right? So even if someone came up with these tags, you've been over this before, but they have come up with tags in the past. But there's a company behind it, other people look at that work kind of differently. So it's great to have you guys kind of as I don't know what you want to call it.
Vow of poverty.
A rebel alliance. Yeah, exactly.
Well, it's not you guys, John. It's all of us. It's the entire community. It's not. Yeah, we just do the show.
But yeah, sure, Dave. The magic is in one thing and one thing only. And I've talked to many people about this, and we've been approached many times. And is that we just are not taking any money from anybody. The only money we'll take is donated. Out of appreciation for what the project is. That's what makes it work. It also
when Alex Gates text messages me at midnight on a Tuesday and says something like, "Man, I've got this great idea," and he lays it out. You can only have that sort of relationship when there's not money involved. When you start getting into all the other stuff and it just falls apart.
Yeah.
It is an alignment of interests, I think. I think more than anything, it's kind of a lot of people had the same sort of ideas. Like when you started this, I think that was about the time that Spotify was getting off the ground. And I think a lot of people had the same thought at the same time. And so I know that's why I found you guys. I think we kind of line up as far as kind of really wanting the way it has been to kind of keep going. And I don't think there's any guarantee that it will. I think Apple has done a great job of kind of encoding it for now, but guess due to kind of the concentration of things, it wouldn't be hard for some of the bigger players to just specify another way of doing things and, have some backroom meetings. And then we've kind of lost a lot of the stuff that we have today. So my whole overall goal, if I have any goal, is to just kind of maintain the status quo of like lots of apps, lots of hosts, kind of a dynamic like system with a lot of players.
Do you? I was
just going to ask one more thing. Now, do you have a day job currently, or are you just coasting on that Google stock?
Well, it's been rougher the last few months. But,
the coast has been downhill. Yes.
It's a vow of poverty, right? What's the euphemism? I'm investing in the future.
That's cool. That's cool.
I love that you guys talk about your bills. I spend about $500 a month right now on all the back end. And I've been seeing all this data come through because I look at every single episode that comes out, and I saw a lot of, kind of cool stats, and I'm interested in that sort of thing myself. But then I started publishing that as well. So that's kind of another thing I'm kind of doing on the side is, someone will throw out, like, I wonder how many episodes use chapters or how pervasive chapters are. I'm like, I could actually tell you.
Yeah.
So that's been kind of fun as well. So just to see, it's kind of nice being able to kind of work in a space where like things are still evolving and there's still a lot of low-hanging fruit. I think strategically, I'm focusing on an app, like a client app. I think that's like the biggest hole. I think there's a lot of great hosts out there. So I think I have some ideas in the hosting space as well, but I think there's tons of great, like all levels, enterprise, free, and everywhere in between.
Yeah. It's a full space. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So I think I'm kind of okay with where that is. But on the app side, I don't know if you know, but Libsyn has a podcast, and every month they go through and kind of list out what they see for, downloads wise from all the podcasts that are on their system. And they always, they've going back many years now, and I've been looking at that. And they used to break out like, okay, so Apple Podcasts we're seeing this many downloads from Apple Podcasts. Spotify's obviously coming up, Google's coming up, but the independent, like, so everything other than Google and Apple, that share has been going down consistently. And so that's what worries me. Overcast is doing a great job out there, but it's iOS only. But
from a philosophical standpoint, why? Why does that overall market share matter?
Because of for what I see, it's kind of like a strategic thing again. If, let's say, only 2 apps are the primary portal into podcasting, it makes it a lot easier for them to just say, okay, we're going to do another thing now. Because then no matter what Apple does, I think anyway, the host would jump to do it. So if they said tomorrow, we're going to do JSON feed or something crazy like that, they would fall over themselves, the host, to implement it right away. So we're kind of, it's limited by the clients to some extent as far as where the innovation happens.
Here's my view on that, because I think we get way too hung up on leaderboards and percentages and all of this. The only way podcasting grows is through communities that are promoting whatever it is that is going to rise to the top. And sometimes it's a technological thing that boosts podcasting. Often it's content. So podcasting was growing, maybe 5 to 10% a year, bubbling under, and it got pushed way down once YouTube and Facebook and Twitter, and that was, it was all about social media. So there was really no ink at all for podcasting, although it was growing, but no mainstream attention until Serial hit. Mm-hmm. So my point being that you can't market your way to the top of the apps. I don't think we're ever going to see apps as big as Apple and Spotify. It will even out, but it's all going to happen in small pockets. These small pockets happen and grow because the podcasters, they want people to use that app. And that reason, some of them have it now. A lot of Bitcoiners, a lot of pioneers, early adopters. We're in a very, very early stage. Most of the apps are just getting to where they're acceptable for people to make a change or try something out. So I think we're a ways off, but these percentages, it's demoralizing. It doesn't matter. look at the features that some hosting companies are implementing. Yeah, it's not overnight and they're not all falling over themselves, but a number of important ones are doing it and supporting it. And because we're not falling over ourselves because Apple said we're going to do something, we're doing it right.
Well, I think the YouTube talk that's been going on for the last couple of weeks is kind of it needs to be talked about, because I don't trust those numbers. Let me put it this way. YouTube as a podcast platform, now they're going to do like the keynote. Somebody from YouTube is going to do like the keynote at Podcast Movement, and they're making their play into podcasting. And then I hear, you keep hearing these big numbers, like 40% of people listen to podcasts on YouTube from Edison Research and all this kind of stuff. I mean, it's just kind of all in the podcast industry news. And I've got real problems with those numbers and how to interpret that. Because, well, I guess number one is, if that's true, if it's true that 40% of people listen to podcasts on YouTube, then why is YouTube making this big play of getting into podcasting? That sounds like they already are. I mean, why are they going to pay
I can answer that.
$50,000.
I can give you the answer. I can give you the answer. No, they're saying something different. They're saying, we want you to make video versions of your podcast. That's very different. And so they're not necessarily asking for a whole bunch of people with mics and headsets and studios. They're looking for more. They're trying to build a library of hits. That's what all these people do. That's what Spotify's doing. That's what Google is doing. Amazon will do their own version. Apple's the only one that just wants people to use their subscription service. I don't think they care much about anything else. But these people, this is all content plays. Has nothing to do with podcasts. They couldn't give a shit about what we're doing.
No, I agree with that. I guess my problem is with the numbers and what that means to the industry, because these numbers are just reported.
But
they're just reported.
It's meaningless. I think my point is it's meaningless. It doesn't really matter, does it?
Well, if you have 40, here's the way James explains it. He says, okay, if the survey, if you ask somebody where they listen to podcasts and they tell you YouTube, well, then it doesn't matter that YouTube is not really what we consider a podcast. What it matters that they think it is a podcast, so therefore it's a podcast. Now, I'm not interested in the debate about what is a podcast, but what I know is that those numbers are being reported to the podcast industry as podcasts. And it's like taking it's like asking somebody if they watch movies, but not distinguishing between the theater and television. If you're taking these numbers and saying, okay, 40% of people listen to...
You're absolutely right. It's almost apples to oranges.
It misinforms the podcast industry about what actually happens. Like, for instance, you have... if somebody thinks PewDiePie is a podcast and they say, oh yeah, I listen to podcasts on YouTube. Yeah, that's where I listen. And the whole time in their mind, they're thinking that this video channel they watch all the time is a quote unquote podcast. That's fine for that. But then if you take that information and go tell the podcast industry, the traditional podcast industry, that look here, 40% of people listen to podcasts on YouTube, and they're like, oh, I don't know what to do about that. Well, yeah, you don't know what to do about it because it's not actually accurate.
Well, okay.
That's my issue, yeah.
Just so you know, since day one on podcasting, the argument of where people listen and what is then considered a podcast has been raging. And to this day, there are people that say, dude, I was putting my radio shows on the internet in 1983. I was the first podcaster. So
yeah. That
argument is boring. What was interesting to me about all the numbers that I've heard reported, and as you know, I really don't put much. I don't care. It's just, we're building something. We've got 5,000 podcasts that are using it. Probably 1,000 of those are really using it actively and are starting to hone their pitch for value. But more importantly, the authoring tools are starting to come online. Slow, but they're coming online, and all we've done is led by example. The number that I found most interesting, that something we can affect, is women. A large percentage of women listen to a podcast on the podcast website. I've seen this myself.
Yeah.
I've seen this myself. That's a humongous opportunity for embedded players. Mm-hmm. That's and an embedded player that is, I mean, all of our apps, I think almost all of them have at least some web version, and we have some cool sharing widgets. But think about players and what we can do with the namespace, tags, etc. there to get people to use an app. But even then, I mean, is it invalid to have someone use the CurioCaster embedded player with a wallet with everything there versus on the CurioCaster.com PWA?
No, not at all.
No.
I think the way I think about it is that YouTube is kind of a good North Star as far as user experience. I think in the future, let's say video was not that expensive back in the day, there probably would be 5 or 6 YouTubes. But they kind of, Google took a massive hit. Their bandwidth bill is just insane. But now we're getting to the point where you could see almost building a YouTube on a lot of the newer edge technologies that are out there. I think there's going to be some interesting startups that kind of blend what we're doing with podcasting and then also bringing that to video in the future. But
well, Alex is doing it by himself with the
exactly. Exactly. But I think you'll see kind of larger companies start to do this. And then but the experience is crucial.
I'm sorry to interrupt. You said you'll see larger companies starting to do this. Just explain what this is again.
I think building, for example, the podcast hosts don't have apps right now. So if they come out with a new feature, they're kind of reliant on the app side to kind of build everything to expose that. But you could imagine that they would build apps that can do audio and then potentially video as well for their customers, just because they know that they can make a great experience for their customers.
Yeah.
Well, and so I could see and again, I think just the experience is what we should look at YouTube for inspiration from. And honestly, over I think New Year's, I think Buzzcast was why. What of one of these new podcast features would be really compelling for an average podcast listener to actually switch apps, that would actually cause them to switch.
Here's a striking thought, because it just struck me. Maybe we should consider redefining what we're building. Should it only be apps that are in app stores? Should they always look the way they look?
I don't think so.
I don't think so either. I mean, creatively, the features have been driven by the app developers, 100%. And of course by creators who are using those elements and asking their tool suppliers, which is the hosting companies, to implement that so they can use it. That's how the demand works, and that's how stuff gets in there. There's not a lot of push coming from the hosting companies in that regard. But
I think you're going to see a blend, though, because you're going to see services that kind of use a lot of the data that transcripts is a perfect example. That's sort of interesting from just a straight kind of user point of view. It'll be useful to some people. But that is a wealth of information that services are going to be able to create amazing search experiences for example. So I think you're going to see a lot of just web services that kind of read this data as well.
We're in agreement. What I'm saying is we need the creativity. We need to get our heads out of our asses as to what a podcast app is and what people really want.
Working on it.
If women predominantly are using a player on a web page, which is pretty sad if they're using, and I know they're using it on some of my shows. It's just a simple, MP3 player. It's all nothing. Why wouldn't we spend? I mean, the same benefits, whether it's in an app or not, probably more even to some degree, we can build into those web pages. We should be going where people want to be, and I think we're a little too hung up on religion and that Apple. Okay, it's like. It's nonsensical numbers.
I don't have a problem with podcast as a term either. I think that's fine to kind of, even though it's kind of a horrible name, it's kind of like right now everyone kind of knows it as it's the non-mainstream sort of media delivery system. And so I think people, no matter what the apps end up looking like, and I think, like you said, I agree, there's going to be thousands of different types of apps. I think the notion of podcast as the overall term for this is still useful.
Yeah, I mean, I think what matters is that the source of the delivery and the endpoint where it's delivered to maintain decentralization. What now? How that looks, whether or not you're serving it out of object storage or off servers or off IPFS on the back end, or whether or not you're consuming it with a mobile app or a website or a PWA or an embedded player on the edge. I don't think either one of those things really matter as long as they stay that way, as long as they stay decentralized. And that's my problem with the whole YouTube conversation. Like Chris Fisher brought a clip of Chris Fisher talking about this very thing on the latest episode of Coder Radio. And he's talking about what he sees going on in the industry. If you want to play that clip, Adam.
I've been feeling the same way, only in the podcast space. Today it came out that YouTube is offering like $50,000 to certain podcasters to take their audio-only podcast and make it a video podcast. And then, start using their ads and stuff like that. And, you watch what Spotify is doing. You watch what Apple is doing. You see what Libsyn's trying to do with suppressing ad prices, and YouTube is trying to do by taking over podcasting. And I start thinking to myself, how the hell am I going to be able to stay independent for the next 5 years? It's getting really, really centralized out there. For some, like the rumor is as much as $300,000 the offer is, which I still find ridiculous. $50,000 couldn't even convert a single one of our podcasts to video. Think about it. That doesn't even pay for a year of a video editor, not to mention camera equipment, lighting, sets, editing equipment. I mean, give me a break. $50,000 is spent in one weekend buying the gear.
No, that makes no sense. Yeah.
But they're trying to incentivize a centralization of podcasters, because once you go onto the YouTube platform, you create content for the algorithm. And you have to create content that's also appealing to the ad bot, because it's all an auction system behind the scenes. And the auction system has preferences. It looks for brand safe content. And brand safe content is not only the type of things that you cover, but it's the genre that you cover as well. I look at independent podcast operations, and I just think, I don't even know if most of them are going to make it the next couple of years. I think it's really bleak out there.
All right, I'm going to take this in reverse order. First of all, the only reason this is a news is because there's money involved. Whenever there's money and there's free money, people always get, money, money, money. And there's always all kinds of thinking that goes along, and there's feelings and shit that happens. Whereas 99% of all podcasters probably will never make or should make any money. The bigger travesty here is not people using YouTube or whatever to listen to podcasts. The travesty is that creators put it there. If you want to create a community that is profitable both on a creative and business level, you need to control that community. That's the bottom line. I don't care if you're using if you're streaming live with NATube and using CurioCaster, you still need to have control over your community, which is what we're doing and what we're building. People are realizing, it's not such a great deal. There will always be a whole bunch of fools who go to the major labels. That's not going to end anytime soon. The people always follow the money, and they think where the money is where the audience is, but you have no connection. When you have to go to all these different places, you really don't own your audience. And when by own, I mean you don't have them in a place like No Agenda has. We've never done any kind of marketing or been put on other. We've refused to be put on Spotify, but we did set up our own Mastodon server.
What concerns me about YouTube getting into this, and I don't disagree with what you're saying. I guess from a technology standpoint, I think that John, what you were saying earlier is that if a whole bunch of cabal of huge tech got together and wanted to reformat the system, they could probably do it. And this is my concern: is the decentralization. If it gets under attack from a big player like YouTube, and it comes in through the back door where, YouTube is getting into podcasting. Well, yeah, but what is the net result of that? Is the net result of that it is going to be to destroy everybody else's business, and take away this precious.
But how? I don't understand how. I fail to see how. It seems like there's a lot of fear. YouTube's going to come in and they're going to stomp all over everybody. That's a big presumption. I'm not so sure that's true.
And also, having done a tour of duty in one of these places as well,
they're fucked up as like anybody else.
Exactly. And the one thing that actually really that they'll spend their time in the shower thinking about and neglect their families
revenue per user.
No, it's competition actually.
Interesting.
They could not, especially tech people, I think, they really cannot stand another tech company coming out with another product that they're like, oh, we could have built this. And they will copy it. They'll spend all of their, look at what Google did with Google+. So I think what we're doing is exactly correct. And that is kind of like showing the way, hey, this is an innovative feature that all of these podcast apps are going to find useful, no matter if it's a traditional client app or a service. I think you guys have done a really good job of kind of keeping the features at an abstract level. So it's like, here's how to represent value. Here's how to represent, we're talking about comments. And all these things are kind of like, they're going to be structured data that's broadly applicable to any of these apps.
And it creates an ecosystem longer term of tool providers. I use I use Hypercatcher. I use that with Dreb Scott, and he does the chapters, and he gets 10% of some of my 5% of every single show I'm involved in through the value block split. We need lots more of these types of tools and services to come online, and some of those will eventually be folded into or purchased by hosting companies. This is not something that you can measure report to report. And to be honest, also even though I hear we come out smelling really good, I don't like report cards. I don't, I just want to see what people are actually doing and using. And if why are they using YouTube? I'll tell you, here's what I heard the most. It's on my YouTube app faster than it's on my podcast app. And they're not watching; they're just using the app so they can keep it closed and listen to it. It's the same as hitting play on a web page. If people continue to upload to web pages like YouTube, then people are going to listen to their podcast over on YouTube. If you're not missing out, maybe some programmatic algo thing about the podcast discovery. It's not how podcasts are discovered. It's word of mouth. That's how podcasts grow. Not through any other mechanism. It's just a different beast. But if people want to listen to it on a web page, let's make a great experience. It doesn't matter if it's on a web page or in an app. It's the same thing.
Well, that's probably the other thing that podcasting as a technology and as a platform has that other platforms do not, which is the pace of innovation and how fast we can change things. Because I had a fantastic call. Did a Zoom call with some guys out of Australia this past, I think it was like maybe Wednesday or Tuesday. And it's an app that it's on the apps, it's on the iOS app store. It's called Vizi, Vizzy. They just released it and they're waiting for it to be released on Android. And it's sort of this interesting, this interesting hybrid thing where they've got a back-end platform, web-based platform, where you can go like claim your podcast, and when you publish your episode, you can then go through and add these chapter markers with affiliate links and a whole bunch of stuff. It's basically like these hypercharged chapter things, very similar to what I think Benjamin Bellamy was wanting with podcast recommendations tag, to be able to sort of like deliver all kinds of interesting endpoints to the listeners through chapters. And then they've got an app that goes with it to show their sort of enriched chapter content. And, they said, well, one of their goals is to do integrations with hosting companies in the future and be able to take chapters, and suck them in and then add this content to it. So, things like that are coming on board. And that's something like you can't write plugins for YouTube. You can't extend the experience at all. And the ability to to take an idea and build on it and make it better is maybe the killer feature of podcasting.
But look at where the power is. The power is with the developers. The power is with the creators. That's the bottom line. They're literally paying people to come to their sorry ass platform. That's got to say this guy. I mean, we're not paying anybody to come and use podcasting 2.0.
Thank God.
So this fear, this constant reporting about the percentages and oh my goodness, it's so boring. It's just boring. I don't care. I really don't. It's not important. There will never be a king of all media. It's too fragmented. It's going to be even more fragmented. We're seeing newspapers and television and radio in the traditional sense. And I know that I'll get pushback because yes, there's $1 trillion in advertising still being made in radio, but it is dying slowly. It's dying, and we are rocketing up. And the same goes for podcasting 1.0. It's coming.
But you mentioned payment, and I think I can. I'll put out my more conspiracy theories on this podcast because I don't know that people listen to it. But if I think one of the more interesting things, if you ever get value to value or value for value working, is it going in reverse. I think I had an early streaming app out on Android, and you get to see like how people actually use your app and what is important to people. And I think it's important, or I think what I found was really interesting is that people are extremely price sensitive, and people will go through all sorts of hoops to like not pay for stuff. And so I think the idea of paying listeners as a kind of incentive to come over to it like another app or something like that is actually pretty compelling. I know Google, for example, would probably pay people to log in and search if they could, but there's just no mechanism exists. If we figure out how to have everyone have wallets, I think the whole idea of kind of like, hey, here's a way to market that doesn't penalize the listener, it actually adds some value to the listener. I think that could be really interesting.
I disagree, and that's only recently that I've thought about this. And I think we were talking with Roy from Breeze about it. And I think when you pay people to come and use your stuff, and in this case, you're not saying come listen to Joe Rogan on CurioCaster. You're saying come use CurioCaster. I don't think that's the way it works.
No, it would be more like marketing, right? Where it's like instead of paying Overcast to show something, you would say, hey, you're going to feel good about listening to this because you're going to get some, I don't know. It's kind of like play to pay games almost. But I do agree. You don't want to bring in people just for that.
Well, you're going to get, yeah. I don't like it as a marketing tactic to buy customers in that manner, because I think particularly if you're giving people money, the same people will come and get free money.
It's like, what was that old search engine? There was an old search engine that would pay you to search. I think it was like X12 or something like that, way back at like .com era. But I think the payment system doesn't really allow for it now. So if you guys figure out payments, then I think that'll be cool.
Well, what part have we not figured out?
Well, going the other way again, and more kind of like, it's got to be a little easier than it is now.
Well, of course, of course, it's got to be easier. We're having arguments about channel fees, which will be null and void in a year from now. This is going incredibly fast.
Yeah, it is really exciting too, because you see everything. It's kind of cool because everything is coming together at the right time. Lightning is kind of hitting a lot of different places other than podcasting, and then
not just that, but people are realizing they're getting screwed by pig tech. This is my new one, pig tech instead of big tech. They're getting screwed by pig tech. They're deplatforming countries now. I mean, people are aware of this. They're awake. They're starting to make different choices.
Well, if only there was some sort of federated version of Twitter that we could kind of build on top of.
Could we put that into the apps? Could we put that into the apps for comments that everybody could see, no matter what that was?
This is a great idea,
and it could work even and it could even work in an embedded player on a web page. What a grand idea! Do you have any thoughts about that, John Spurlock?
I want to hear about I want to hear about the format war between Lightning comments and ActivityPub. This is clearly going to be a
wait a minute.
Who's
in this war? Who's in this war?
I heard that. Did you listen to Podland? I
haven't heard it all yet. No, I haven't heard it all yet.
I have some thoughts on this, and again,
well, tell me what the premise was, because I didn't hear this yet.
Go ahead. Well, basically, it's that we have two comment systems, right? Nominally, we have Boostergrams, which kind of go over the Lightning Network, and then we're talking about kind of more general, like Twitter type comments for each episode. And the thinking was, I think, hey, now developers have to support both. But I responded to Oscar on his GitHub thing, and I think actually what he's doing is really good in that we need some sort of way of reading these Lightning comments. Right now, if I'm an app, I can't read Boostergrams. So that's a problem. And so I think tools like Helipad is one way of solving them. But I do think it's worth thinking about how to expose that in some sort of JSON formatted way. So I think that protocol that he's come up with might be a really good starting point for how to do that. But how I see that is that it's basically he's coming up with a protocol. So it's almost like he's coming up with a protocol that we could slot in as a social interact platform, along with any other social interact platforms that you have for that episode. So what I was seeing is that you could have something like, here's where to go for ActivityPub comments for this episode, and here's where to go for Lightning comments. And it's a way to get people not exclusively into one or the other. So it kind of like lets people go into Lightning gradually. So to me, I think it's like people forget that the social interact tag is like not exclusive. It says like, here's where to go on Twitter for this episode.
Right.
Here's where to go on the Fediverse for this episode. And I think it's really important to say, here's where to go to get the Boostergrams for this episode, which right now is impossible. But what's cool about what Benjamin has done is that he's created a tag that will basically work for that. You can specify, one or more kind of platforms for each episode. So
let me just say something about the publishing of Boostergrams, because we've pioneered the value for value model, and the reason you have a Boostergram in the value for value model initially, and it's open for interpretation, is the feedback loop, which is, okay, I'd like you to support the show, whatever it's worth to you. That comes back, and then the intent, the way it's been working, there may be other ways to do it, but the way it's been working has then you read out the message. And we, like on No Agenda, we don't publish all messages, and we publish 0 of those messages. We tell everybody, and we may skip around and read through it, or sometimes there's no message, which is with Boostergrams is more rare. I'm not necessarily sure that the future of Boostergrams is to have them published everywhere. In fact, I think it detracts from what you can actually do with value for value.
I may not be encapsulating your feelings on this, John, but I think John, what you're saying, there's a terminology problem here, and Boostergrams is sort of a catch-all phrase that means anytime somebody sends a message on Lightning, and that's not exactly what Oscar is proposing, because he's and I think that when we talk about it, it comes across garbled. But I think like what Oscar is proposing, and I think what you're talking about, John, is Lightning comments being just another style of comment where there's a different TLV record, and it's its own thing. And then the Boostergrams are, those are still point to point within the app. It's a listener to podcaster message. Then you have this other thing called a Lightning comment, and just they could mix, or they might not. But they're not one and the same.
Sorry. I think, isn't that the purview of the podcaster, though? I mean, I guess I'm more liberal on this. Like, you could have a podcaster that wants to show them, and then one that wants to filter them.
You can.
One that doesn't want to show them.
You can. My point is, I know what works. I'm not so sure this works really well. I'm not.
Yeah, well, because Boostergrams, the way we do it, is part of it's show content.
Well, that's how they're supposed to work. The intent. That's how the value for value loop work. I'm not saying that's the only way. You can do whatever you want. I don't even like having a Twitter and a Mastodon. I would rather. Why don't you have if you want to publish it, put a bot that connects your Boostergrams to your Mastodon or your Activity Pub. I'm not so sure that's a good idea to have all these different ways to do it. It's okay. Well, I mean, we can also have 5 different types of crypto in the value for value payments, which we don't.
Well, the issue here is that I don't even look at the Boostergrams during the week. I print them off right before the show because I don't want to know what they are before we read them, because it's show content. And if you publish them in advance, then all your listeners already know half of the show, and it's not as exciting. You don't get to hear the new content. And so but with a Lightning comment system, you can gateway those things however you want to. So if you were accepting Lightning comments and on an episode, and then those comments that are comments are they could be gatewayed out to Activity Pub or anything else you wanted them to be. I don't see them as being mutually exclusive to Activity Pub at all. I just see it being another.
If I may, it's beautiful to hear you speak that way, because I hear you at one point talking like a content creator, and the other one I hear you talking as a software developer, technologist. There's a huge lack of people listening to what creators want. Huge lack. And so we wind up sometimes creating all kinds of things, or we are in danger of creating things that people just might not wind up using, or using in a completely different way, and then crippled because we weren't communicating.
Well, you've called me down on this for years. We've always had phone conversations where, I've said, hey, I just built this thing into the Freedom Controller editor that's going to let you do so-and-so. And you're like, yeah, but that's not the way I do things.
Right.
And you're like, let me go over and tell you exactly what my workflow is. And you lay it out. And then it's like the light bulb goes off.
So to me, cross-app comments in their origin are extremely exciting, because I just want to have an app that I use, and I'm not so worried about if I can then go and transport my profile to another app. I appreciate that we're thinking about these things, even though we still don't have OPML import and exports anywhere, or not enough. That I just don't think it's that important. We want comments in apps that work across the apps.
Yeah, and I think we're looking way down the road on some of this stuff. I think the older I get, the more kind of like pragmatic. I'm like, well, this is not a problem because no one is commenting anywhere now. It's like Correct. RSS is that we kind of need to seed the feed with structured data. So this is going to, like we were talking about before, for apps that want to check out, this is not a user facing, but let's say they just want to follow ingest the comments for searching as well. All of that is useful in the feed, as we've described. So I think we are not even thinking of all the possibilities that
right.
people are going to use this with.
And again, I'll come back to the numbers. I'm not so focused on what YouTube may or may not be doing. But when I hear women, a large segment of women listen to podcasts on the podcast page itself, shame on all of us. Shame on the hosting companies. Shame on us. Shame on me. Because
I know I've been seeing a lot of people going over to GoodPods. Have you guys checked out GoodPods yet? It's actually kind of a good app, but it's one of its biggest features is comments. So they have
right,
kind of
but it's closed off. It's a closed,
exactly,
and so that's and I'm sure they're fine people. I think I may even be doing a podcast with the CEO or something, and so I'll learn a lot more. But when it's a closed off community, well, that's the thing we're trying to get away from. That's exactly why we're doing this. I let Apple become the on-ramp to podcasting. We shouldn't allow anyone to be the on-ramp to comments.
Well, let's talk about GoodPods for a second. Would a company like GoodPods, this is theoretical because we don't know them, would a company like GoodPods be willing to publish back out their comments as ActivityPub? Or do they see that as some sort of proprietary advantage over the market?
Well, what is their business?
I don't know. See,
the reason why we can even discuss this is because we have no business. I would think in general, most of these types of companies need to contain their users to some degree because that's the value. It's their RPUs or their value for whatever metric they're using. And I believe they're funded. So I think they have investors. I could be wrong.
I worry about Podchaser more than I worry about Good Pods in that respect.
I don't worry about any of it. I've seen all this come and go. I've seen AOL come and go.
Possible integration. I think it would be cool if I actually think the main hurdle for a lot of these apps, and they've just flipped a bit, is do I want comments at all? Because it's a technical thing, but it's also it's a headache, right? I mean, you are onboarding user-generated content and all of that. So I think a lot of apps have to make that first decision. Do I want to sign up for this? And no amount of magic ActivityPub sauce is going to kind of save them from some of that. Now, we can create components that make a lot of this easier, but I think there's still a fundamental thing of, do I want to integrate user-based comments in my app? And is that going to be a feature that I promote? And I think GoodPods has already crossed that. So I could see them at some point, if there's a thriving community elsewhere, of them bringing it in as well. I don't know anyone over there, but I think from what I've seen so far, they've demonstrated that it's a valuable thing.
Well, so when it comes to pay, there's this issue of paying for comments, and that's distasteful, which is part of the Lightning comments, thing is we can all agree that if you have to pay for comments, that it's going to increase the quality of the comment. I mean, to some degree, you're going to be less likely to have spam and that kind of thing. But then there's the ethical thing of, do you want to have to make somebody pay to comment? And the answer is no. You don't want to be that way. But in that regard, I think it's okay to have both things exist, like a Lightning comment system where you do the app says, okay, I don't want to have to deal with the headaches of spam, so I want to enable comments only for people who are willing to give up 1 Satoshi, which, 1/100th of a cent. That's the choice that I make for my app. And then you have this other app that says, no, I'm a free for all. I want everything. And because you can go back out to because you can gateway it back out to the world, either way, then we all get the benefit of seeing both things in action. And we can then make decisions later on. Okay, well, maybe we want to sort things in a different way, or when we go to podcast discovery or search, we want to give more weight to one or the other. Like I see the existence of both of those things as fine. I think it's okay. It makes sense. I don't see it as a format war at all. I don't know how you feel, but that's the way it seems to me.
Yeah, I don't either. Again, I think it slots in very well with the. It's a choice. So if the podcaster chooses to publish those comments out, if they want to do it, there's a tag for it right now, and then we just define that as a protocol that.
Right, but where we're at right now, format wars or whatever it is, we're stagnant.
Well, I would say in that regard, with here's what would help distinguish a comment on Lightning from a boostergram, and that is, if somebody is paying to comment on Lightning, that payment should go to the app, not the podcaster. Boostergrams go to the podcaster. Comments go well. The podcaster's not running the comment system. They're not incurring any of the cost or overhead or pain or anything of moderating.
I just want comments.
Yeah, I think
I just want comments. I don't care. Just give me a thing. I don't care. Give me comments.
Nice problem to have sort of category.
Everybody needs to block all news for the next week and just don't think about what everybody, whether it's pig tech or not, we're all looking at the competition.
Well, what's needed? So do we need? I feel like we need.
What we need is to focus and not bring in all these other problems. I'm sorry, and that's the way we've done it. So I'm okay with it. We bring in all these problems and all these things, and we can't do this. We need to integrate that, and then no one knows what to do. So for months now, I've been posting the social links on all of my podcasts. There's millions of people who listen to my podcasts. If there was an app that could do comments, I'd be talking about it and getting people to use these apps. So, but there's not, because we don't have anyone that can do a login yet.
Well, Thread to me, the solution to that really is in one piece of code, and that's what you wrote, John.
And I have people, because I posted on No Agenda Social or podcastindex.social, it's populated. So if you open up the comments tab on any of my podcasts, there's comments there. So I'm doing what's expected on my end. It just seems
like one of the things is, I think you're really early, right? I mean, the tag isn't even technically part of the spec yet, right, Dave? So I think that's going to go in this next phase.
You think that slows me down, John Spurlock?
No, you should. I love it. I mean, you're giving me test data. I put you on my website, that new hype website I put up there, podcast.
I love your hype website. It's snazzy. It's snazzy.
Yeah, I think it's just a slow sort of thing. I mean, we are waiting for apps to integrate this. So what excited me so much about it, I don't have a dog in the ActivityPub fight, but what excited me about it is that it exists, that it basically is exactly what we would design if we were going to design something like this, that was kind of a podcast-wide, open internet protocol-based solution. So that exists. The Fediverse exists. Like you said, you already have a bunch of people that are actually using a system. So we're not talking about the additional cost of finding users to do this. But I think we're just waiting on apps to make the experience pretty seamless. And to do that, it's not as easy as like a JSON file, right? You have to actually do some work. You have to say, oh, I have this logged in user on my side. Now I have to define a profile for them. And so I think what's cool and what I've been kind of working on the last few months is just creating some pieces that at least show the way on how an app might do this. And then a couple tools that apps could use to read comments and then to post comments back. But it's, again, it's very early days. So I wouldn't expect anything right away. But I think, again, once you see apps, going back to competition, let's say Podfriend integrates this, I think you're going to see apps kind of integrate this right away. The podcast social thing is more of another problem because, I mean, this feature is also limited by the fact that no podcasts really are putting it in at the moment. So
what do you mean? What do you mean? That's I have 4 podcasts. 1.4 million people listen to one of those podcasts.
Well, you represent about a half of all podcasts that actually implement it at the moment.
Okay, yeah. but I can. But you see, you know who listens to my show? Podcasters.
But you know what? And that's a good point. I mean, it's easy. I think a lot of people think that the podcaster side of this is difficult, and it's not. It's like a tag with a link to the post.
What we have here is a failure to communicate. Go look at the engagement on Podcasting 2.0. It's a lot of no agenda people who are balls to the wall doing shows. Listen to Sir Spencer and going completely flying without a net. And it's really true. It's beautiful to watch, and it needs to be recognized. The people are using it. They're using it. Let's go. They're ready for it. Anything you do,
exciting, actually.
So,
I think it's
but again, John. Again, I'm so sick of the numbers. Hardly anybody's using it. Okay, chicken egg. It's not hardly anyone's using it. We put a tag in if one person uses it.
Well, yeah, but what I mean, like, what when you say just do it? I mean, there's no. I mean, what are we doing? We got to formalize the tag.
Yes. But what I'm saying is, we're getting off track we're being distracted by. Do we make it lightning comments? I mean, it will not get done on the path we're on. And that's because I just see it.
I mean, I'm formalizing the tag. I mean, I'm putting it into phase 5 right now. I mean, it's getting done. It just has like Podfriend and CurioCaster and Podverse. These are forward-looking apps that are willing to do experimental things. Most apps are not like that.
Understood. Understood.
Yeah, they're not going to do that. And
understood.
So it has to be a formal spec before it can be. Before it can be done. I mean, I'm not bothered by the slow roll of this. It doesn't bother me because every time we come up with some new edge case that has to be handled, we're thankful that we didn't go too fast on it.
Dave, I'm completely in agreement. What I'm saying is I'm disappointed that the creators are being left out of the conversation and ignored.
Well, there's not. I just disagree. I mean, there's nothing.
What do you mean by that? Yeah, I don't understand what you mean by that.
They're not being ignored because there's nothing. It doesn't exist yet to give to them.
No, when it comes,
because there's no formal specification to give to the apps.
I look at what people are arguing about or discussing, and once the lightning comments came back. That's when I went, oh, okay, well, it'll be forever because that's going to go on for a long time. And I'm just saying.
No, I don't think that. So. No, I don't think it's going to slow anything down at all. Because that's the point I was trying to make. And I did a terrible job was that I don't think it's a format war. If it was an actual format war, if this was RSS versus Atom, it would be a problem. But I don't think this is a format war at all.
Well, but isn't ActivityPub versus Twitter by definition a format war?
Well, I don't think anybody cares about Twitter at this point.
Okay, then why do we even make it possible to incorporate it?
I think you put it in there as possible just to make sure. Well, the same way that we put in the option for there to be an Ether coin in the value for value block.
Good point.
Nobody cares.
Okay, good point. The alternate enclosure is an approved and implemented tag, correct?
Yes.
How many apps support it?
2. I think 2. I may be leaving one out. No.
I have torrent RSS feeds of all my shows in torrent. I have. I'd love to do some IPFS. I don't have the tools. I don't have the tools to make it, and I don't have anyone to receive it. And that's a tag that is good to go.
Nobody wants it though.
I want it.
See, but you're not
exactly. And there we are. Thank you.
Yeah.
Point made.
Yeah, you're not a listener, and so
keep pushing at them.
I'm not a listener. I'm not a listener. I can't talk to my listeners. I can't convince them to do anything, and they never ask me for anything. That's the disconnect.
That the problem with something like that you're describing is that the listener can tell no difference between a podcast delivered through IPFS and through HTTP download. There's absolutely zero benefit, perceived benefit to the listener. And for features like that, apps do not care. Now, the first app to implement alternate enclosure was PodLP. And he had an actual reason for it.
Specific reason for it.
Yes.
But if I wanted to do video, I'd want to have the alternate enclosure tag. I want to have the media tag implemented. So now we're at a different chicken and egg. When can I start creating stuff using features if they're not implemented? Do I just go to podcastindex.social and say, hey, what are we going to do? You understand?
Well,
do you understand? I'm just saying there's technology dilemmas, and then there's a dynamic between the developers and the creators. It's not all just about the listeners. The creators talk to the listeners, tell them what to do. They explain it to them. They help them get on board. That's the missing piece here. Is we're always like, oh, well, people don't. I think people go to YouTube not because it's YouTube, because, that's where they found it, or that's where it's easy to listen to. They'll go anywhere to find it as long as it fits within their realm, and we're not really driving any of that.
Look at YouTube as an example of something like the alternate enclosure. The alternate enclosure is a direct replacement, a decentralized replacement for YouTube's automatic quality scaling. It's one of the aspects of alternate enclosure. The reason YouTube had to have that was because without it was a bad experience. The issue with podcasts is you give the same thing, but there are so few video podcasts, and most podcast quality is decent because the bit rates are small, that the need for the alternate enclosure, perceived need for it, is tiny.
Let me approach it from a different. Let's stick with YouTube, and then I'll shut up. The main difference between a podcast in an app and a podcast on YouTube, can you tell me? There's one difference, and I don't care if it's audio or video. Lots of people listen to audio podcasts on YouTube with just the album art image. What is the main difference in that experience?
Between listening to a podcast on YouTube and listening to one in a podcast app. The main difference would be, well, I can think of a few, but I mean, the one that jumps to mind is it's easy.
Okay, John, any thoughts?
You can use your any app, right? You can use the app you're already familiar with. Whereas if you
what's the difference between listening to a podcast on YouTube or the YouTube app, I don't care, or a podcast app? What's the difference?
Well, you need to be premium first of all, or else it's going to be a horrible experience.
Yeah, what's the difference? Okay, between premium, what's the difference? Yeah. I'm looking at the chat room. They're not getting it either.
There's not a difference.
Well, honestly, what I would say is that there is actually not much of a difference.
Okay. Oh, you ready for it? Comments. That's the difference. I've been on big podcasts and the community is in the comments. Thousands and thousands of them. Comments.
You're speaking my language. See, that's why I think it's compelling. I was sold in December or whatever when I started working on this. So I think that is actually I would like to see. I'm basically doing whatever I can to make it as easy for apps to implement this, because I think it benefits every app to do this, because the more we kind of pool our user base, right, the more we're not doing our own separate comments. I'm writing an app now, right? I'm creating comments. If comments don't exist, I'm still going to do comments. They will just be locked in my app. And so we haven't really gone anywhere. I think the beauty of this is that we've actually defined a way that works to do it across apps. And so I'm personally going to do whatever I can to keep making that happen, because I think it's actually a cool feature. And it's not that hard.
All I'm saying is there's no difference. There's no other difference. That's the main difference.
Yeah. I mean, we're there. That's what's exciting.
And now what they do have, and if you just look at a successful model, they have the super chat. Now, that is how you can incorporate boosts into the comments. By the way, they don't show up in the comments below. They show up in a separate area on YouTube. So if we're truly worried about YouTube coming in and stomping all over podcasting, well, let's at least do what they do equally or better. And I think we can.
No, I think we can too. Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, I couldn't have said it better myself. That's actually, but the live chat issue and the Boostergrams there, I think that's where it really comes into play. They actually don't have the notion of a live replay like Twitch, where they show that.
Right. But if we just did a UX comparison side by side,
yeah,
any study that just said what are the main features would say, well, look what's going on here. People seem to come back here to read if there's replies to their comments. I mean.
And podcasters can go there, and instead of going to 5 different apps, they can go to one place to see all the feedback, the entire community feedback for a given episode. I think podcasters, going back to the creator side of this, they have, number one, they have control over what happens at that endpoint, where they don't have control over that in Twitter or in YouTube.
Correct.
But number two, they have one place to go. So they kind of have their own, they can use that channel.
That's the idea.
Build their own community. So I think it's like an existing community system.
And it'd be a community. Now, I understand all the apprehension and having apps or having comments in someone's app may not be for everybody, but that's literally what people want. And to have and I think Castapod would agree, to own that, quote unquote, to have that in your control, certainly not to have someone else determine what comment can or cannot be visible. That's what we're doing here. That's the whole point. So, yeah, let's do it.
Are we done yet?
Well, it's kind of nice. It folds together because this. It's apples to oranges to a degree, YouTube to podcasting, and I'm also I'm so sick of hearing about it. Like, show me something already, or YouTube's eating our lunch, or independent apps are dying. Well, no, I just disagree. This is just a metric, but it's not the metric. And
I think what you said about incentives is really important. I think there's a limited amount of push you guys can do, and all of us can do. I think some of it's going to have to be pull. Like people are going to have to be excited about. Like, an app developer is going to have to be excited about adding this before any of this stuff takes off. So maybe some of the apprehension is that people just aren't that excited. App developers aren't that excited adding this feature.
Okay, but then let's not all get our panties in a bunch when YouTube has people going over there for certain things we don't have.
But I don't
exactly.
but I think it's a little more complicated than that, because YouTube, the super chat experience on YouTube really only exists on the desktop. The mobile side of that is a mess. It's only a good experience in YouTube when you're watching it on the web. And I think that's probably an instinctive thing that people understand. And that's probably why Podfriend and Podverse and, and possibly CurioCaster are the ones to implement it first. Because when you have screen real estate to really enjoy the experience of having a chat and a video in one screen. Mm-hmm. Now, I'm not saying it's impossible with mobile.
Well, no, but I'm totally in agreement. I think that's why I've always been a fan of web apps in general, for this very reason.
But see that, and that's why probably the adoption within the podcast app ecosystem is going to be slower for comments than it will be on the website, or maybe even on YouTube proper, is because YouTube, for all its growth on mobile and everything, YouTube really is still the best experience on the web. And that's not traditionally been the case for podcasts. So there has to be, like, that's where this is exciting though, because that's where good web apps like Podverse and CurioCaster and Podfriend can really shine, and take back some market share from the mobile aspect of things.
It's such a small step from a woman wanting to listen to a podcast to click on a link, land on a web page, versus landing on a progressive web app page. It's the smallest step known to mankind. It's the same thing. So I need to do better, and I need to be, you know what? Here's some low-hanging fruit that I wanted to talk about. It folds into this. I was looking for a web page for the Curry and the Keeper podcast, because it's a typical Freedom Controller page. I love my Freedom Controller. My wife's like, she's a marketing communicator. She's like, what is this piece of shit?
Oh, throwing shade.
Yeah, well, I took the brunt of it. Tina. I took the brunt of it, Dave. And so we talked
jumped on the grenade.
Yeah, so we talked about it on the show, and of course, as it always happens, it was actually Dave Jackson says, well, you know what? Why don't you take a look at Podpage? I'm like, oh, Podpage. And Podpage, you just, I did it. I claimed my feed, and
which was easy because your email's right there.
That's right. And I read a couple more offers at the same time, and I liked it. And so, and just by reading the feed, and you have a couple, you actually have a lot of configuration options, and boom, it pops up, and I'm like, wow, that's a really decent website. That really looks pretty good, and you can map your domain name to it and everything, except, there's zero podcasting 2.0 features in it. No chapters, no transcripts, any of that. And just to add insult to injury, right below each individual episode, it has an Apple icon and a Spotify icon. So here's an opportunity, because right now I hear a lot of talk about the podcasters page, and of course and the hosting companies all do a yeoman's job of giving people free pages. But just think about this opportunity that's just sitting out there. I mean, I'll use it. I'll use it for all my shows. Look at all of my podcasts, except for No Agenda Show, but the show notes pages are just Freedom Controller renderings of outlines.
Yeah.
I think even James was interested over at Pod News. And I mean, the more structured data you have on an episode, you could show those on the Pod News generated page as well.
But I just want to send a whole bunch of women to something they're comfortable with, and they don't seem to want an app. They listen to some of my shows on a web page. Why not have it be a fantastic experience? And I have a lot more real estate to explain how to fill up a wallet.
Pro tip: you can include custom CSS on the Fri Controller page and change the entire way it looks.
Yeah, this CSS is kind of where it breaks down for me.
Yeah. Remember, we used to do that back in the day. Remember, you had a competition on No Agenda one time of like, hey, I want everybody to submit custom CSS for the
to change pages, but also to change words. Did we have that as well?
The Chrome extensions?
Yeah, Chrome extensions. Yeah, that was
funny. You can do crazy stuff with CSS nowadays. I'm sure you could, you can replace content. You can have things animated.
Yeah, I'm just a podcaster.
Blink tag.
I can look at my feed and kind of figure out what's going on. That's the level.
But seriously, that Pod Page 2.0 idea is really, really good because that is a way. It's like a very low friction way. It's not a whole app that you have to install. It's like, boom, here's an episode, and it's lit up by all these new tags.
I mean, I'll be honest with you. I use Breeze frequently, but that's, I would say, for some reason, I can always count on Breeze to refresh the feed, and I do have problems. With my browsers, with caching and shit, it sometimes things haven't updated when they should have. So often, I'll use Breeze just to make sure I have the most recent version. Then I have to quit out of Breeze because my battery gets the whole phone starts to heat up after a while.
Chrome has always been such a pain when it comes to caching. Like it is just schizophrenic when it comes to cache breaking. It's nasty.
But then I have now I use Podfriend because it has a beautiful it has a little list there of the episodes that of feeds that I subscribe to in chronological order. So I can go, oh, there's that one. So I know what's updated. A list of little bullets and new that's horrible to me. I'm a river of news guy, if anything. But then CurioCaster just has all the features I want, and when I go to my desktop, fire it up, it's there. My subscriptions, I can use it on any computer I want, mobile or big screen. I have to say, I find even Twitter, I use the web app. I don't use apps anymore.
Oh,
and I'm not just because I'm boomer adjacent. Douchebag in the cotton gin. Douchebag.
No, you're ahead of the game.
Cotton gin in the chat rooms going, a bunch of boomers in here.
Well, I mean, you do use Mutt as your email client, so come on. I mean, there's some okay. So what's happening right this moment? I think it's good to step back and get perspective here. What's happening right at this moment is that a lot of people are listening to the show on CurioCaster,
yes.
And the chat should be showing up also in CurioCaster.
It does.
So
yes,
this is super chat happening at the moment, and also from the perspective of Stephen B., if people are boosting through CurioCaster while they're listening right now, he's getting a percentage of those sats. That's your incentive to do the adoption for a lot of these things if you're on the web platform and get really good stuff.
Unfortunately, with today's live experiment, it seems like the LN Pay node could not handle whatever was going on, or I'm just not receiving payments for some reason. But we did get the 10,034 from Darren, and he came in with the second one, 33,333. He says he still had some sats left over from Random Thoughts, Unrelenting, and Planet Rage. And this is Arvig, he says.
Did you get my test boost earlier?
Nope.
Huh. It said it went through.
No,
then
it
was from Castomatic.
It may be the exorbitant fees I have set on the nodes.
Sir Spencer is like doing like, I told you so, MFer.
Well, they shouldn't fail.
Yeah, true.
I have lots of routes. It shouldn't fail.
Well, I got confetti on my side. Something's going through.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't know. But I know what the problem. Yeah, I know what the problem is on my.
Also, my home IP also wound up on the spam house list or whatever. I don't know how that happened.
Oh crap!
All of a sudden, I couldn't get to my mail server.
I've got new internet. I'm on 1 gig right now, baby.
I can tell you sound so much better.
That's the only way to live.
Yeah,
sounds so much better.
Hey, do we want to thank people?
Yeah. Wow, an hour and a half. This has been a very intense board meeting, gentlemen. I've enjoyed this. Hold on a second. Let me just knock off the official part. Let's let's thank some people who supported not just the podcast, but there's my dog, but the project. So when you support us, you are supporting the work, certainly the work Dave is doing. You are supporting, although Dave's not getting any money, but we're getting sats one way or the other. But you're really helping the machinery run and giving us a bit of runway to continue to grow as we expect to. And you can do that. Well, obviously, anyone who's contributing with their time or talent is helping right off the bat, and that's how value for value should work. Having the treasure angle is very helpful to keep it running. And we like boostergrams. We like Satoshis because we just hoard those.
Yeah. Numbers go up. Go up.
Yeah, not today.
So do you have a node, John, that we can get a split of this episode?
Yeah, I have one of those cute Bitcoin machines. I had to bug the guy incessantly in order for him to ship it.
Oh, okay.
I did.
Is it working though? You can get payments and stuff?
I think so, yeah. I have on the minipub project, I have a value block in there. I don't know if you want to... I'll send you a block that you could use, though, for this one.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Send it to me so I can put it right in the feed before we publish.
Let's see. Right off the bat, RSS.com. Do you want to guess?
RSS.com?
Yeah, PayPal.
They're big supporters. Do I need to have my hand on the button?
Oh, you better be hovering.
Okay, I'm hovering.
$1,000.
Whoa! Holy crap!
Baller, shot caller, 20-inch blades on the Impala.
That's what I'm talking about.
Adam and Dave.
Thank
no
you,
sad puppies today.
No.
Keep up the good work.
No.
And go podcasting 2.0.
Go podcasting! Boost!
That is.
Hold on. I got to let one out. It wasn't really a boost, but it just makes me feel good.
Ben and Alberto.
That's really appreciated.
Yeah, they've been helping since early
the early days.
And always very responsive in the Mastodon too. They'll jump in there when anybody has questions.
And implementing namespace.
Yeah, straight up. Yep. Thank you guys. We got $100 from Leigh Barnes, LIE. No note. Well, thank you, Leigh. Thank you for that $100.
Thank you.
Let's see, $7.77 from Charles Sale. No note. Thank you, Charles. That's our PayPal's. We got some boosts. We got a bazillion.
So
boosts.
literally two PayPals.
yeah.
We have transitioned. We've transitioned into the lower valued Satoshi world.
yeah. It's like 2 or 3 PayPals and 40 boostergrams. Let's see. Anonymous through Breeze, 7,777 sats says heavenly boost.
Ooh, right. Where's my heavenly
Boostergram?
Do we have a heavenly boost?
I don't know of a heavenly boost. Let's see. Chad Farrow says 3333 through Fountain. He says, with all that grunting from Dave, I thought I was listening to Adam and John on No Agenda.
Boost,
was I grunting a lot last week?
I don't know. I guess. I didn't notice it, darling.
Let's see.
I was probably aggravating you.
This must be it because Chad Farrow says another 3333, and he says, I don't like it when mommy and daddy fight. Maybe we were fighting at the time. I don't know.
We're never fighting.
We never had a fight.
You know what it is people aren't used to honesty, to hearing people have an honest conversation because everything is so fake in the mainstream and on a lot of podcasts.
Well, if Chad doesn't like intense discussion, he probably bailed out like 30 minutes ago because this has been the intense board meeting. Cass Peeland, 3,300 sats through Fountain, and he says thanks for the show.
Oh, thank you.
Boost.
Oscar Mary, 101 sats. Really like this idea of updated news-based episodes, especially if tied into chapters so that apps can mark which chapters have been played and listeners can just carry on from where they were.
Yeah, that was for Spurlock.
Yeah.
And, I'd heard the Boggs on Podland. I heard that part. And he was saying, yeah, we're really... And he was just talking about pod ping like it was a whole thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is a thing.
But you need to recognize that. No one's jumping up and Cridlin's just saying, "No, you're going to support this, and podcasting, the namespace, all." it's now part of the discussion.
Yeah, it's
cemented. It's in there. I mean, we're not going anywhere. We're only going one way.
What do you call that? It's not a house word. What household name? It's like a household word now within the podcast industry.
Yeah, like whatever that is. Whatever the podcast is YouTube part of is Google part of the podcast industry?
No, never. Patrick Ulrich said through Fountain. He said 500 sats, and he said El Salvador for all.
Okay, alrighty then.
Boost. Did you see that city in Italy that's now big?
Switzerland. Lugano.
Yeah. It's
that's the way to go. You know, the states in America can do that too. They can make their own money.
Texas first.
Yeah, I'm just saying.
Sir Bill, 5,000 sats through Fountain. He says for the marketing budget.
Hey, thank you.
Hey. Dog ear it, baby.
Yes. Dog ear.
John's BRT gave us 49,000 sats through Fountain. He says theremin boost. I got to have more theremin.
Oh crap.
I don't think we have a theremin boost.
Yeah, we do. I think we do. Let's see. Oh. Can I do a theremin boost? I think I can.
Boost!
I didn't have enough hands. I'm playing the theremin and I hit the jingle. I need an extra hand.
Scott Sikora gave us 5150. Oh, I wonder if that's a Van Halen boost.
Yeah, of course. It has to be. Must be. Does he say anything?
He says, first time boost. Been loving the show and appreciate all the information and hard work you guys do for podcasting. My podcast is Talking Beards, talkingbeards.com.
Well, I think we should bring back the...
You've been defragmented.
Now that he boosted, first time.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, he's defragmented. Yeah, got to be defragmented.
I think, isn't that Dreb's kid?
Probably.
11, let's see, a big row of ones, 11, let's see, what is this? 11,111 through Breeze.
Nice.
Anonymous, just says cheers. Well, cheers to you.
Chad F. in the chat room says you guys had a fake fight on the last episode.
Oh,
yeah, you got us. You got us. It was a fake fight. A fake fight.
They're all fake. We actually love each other.
Well, that's why we fight.
Well, Chad, speak of the devil, gave us 101 sats, and he says, this is some next level shit. Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
All righty then. Martin through Podfriend gave us 100 sats. He says boost test. I love we always get these. It's like you can see when people are doing stuff. Crimson Owl gave us 6,666. That's a demon boost through Breeze. And he says testing avatar name.
Hold on. I made a mistake.
Oh, what? What was it?
I'm seeing Stephen B. He says, the reason why Adam's not seeing any of the live boosts is because his Boostergram monitor isn't in the value block.
Oh.
How come that didn't copy over? Well, so I'm sorry. Then that is operator failure, and I take back everything I said. And that's too bad because otherwise we would have had a lot more pew-pews in the show.
Bummer.
Yeah.
There's always next week.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Another lesson learned.
Another 66 anonymous through Breeze, and he says, love my Breeze. We love Breeze.
You do.
Mm-hmm. That's right. Ned sent us 33 sats, and he just says, testing. Test received, Ned.
Boost.
33 sats. Get out of town.
If he's in the chat room, kick him. Kyron from the Mere Mortals podcast gave us 22 row of ducks.
Yeah.
To Podfriend.
Yeah. We love us some ducks.
And he says, if you're going to start going live, we need the details. What's the general start time? And if I donate enough sats, will you make it later so I don't have to wake up at an ungodly hour? Oh, that's right, because he's in Australia. Can I get a Le Boost as well, please, Adam?
And now, as the French say, it is time for Le Boost.
Now I understand why I was getting Boostergrams from Darren, because he was doing it on Breeze on episode 75 or 76. So that is in the split. Okay. Mystery solved.
Gotcha.
I'm pissed at myself now. Damn it.
Got another test boost from Martin and for 100 sats. And then we got user. This is Sir Harry Pilgrim. Okay, I'm not going to read out this ungodly long number here. But he sent 3569 sats through Fountain. He says, Sir Harry Pilgrim boosting my birthday a couple of days late, 5th of March. Boost!
Yes, baby, boost!
Boost!
Again, this looks like, well, can't tell if that's, these are just numbers. Guys, you got to put a name in there. User 17454, blah, 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 blah. Gave us 1,000 sats, and he says, boost from Recovered Podcast, podcasting hope since 2007. Oh, well, good.
All right. Excellent.
Recovered Podcast.
How you doing,
who
Boost
that is?
here?
That was it?
That was it.
Well, and then we have our monthlies.
Oh, no. That was it for that message. Well, this is from Adam. Is that you?
I don't know. What did I say?
You said, nice to meet y'all.
Oh, obvious demo boostergram.
Demo boost.
Demo boostergram.
So don't let the pastor know that you're self-boosting that you get talking to. Crimson Owl sent 6666 again through Breeze, and he says Boostergrams are now 128 characters in Breeze. Yay!
Oh, that's nice.
Nice.
Yeah, baby.
20,000 sats through Fountain from Steve in Northport, Florida. Keep doing what you're doing. Here is a boost for humanity. Boost.
Oh, we need boost for humanity.
Don't just stand there. Boost.
Okay. All in the works.
Nomad Joe, 2,000 sats. He says, live sounds awesome.
Did he just send that in? Oh, no, that was from Sir Spencer's.
Last week.
Yeah. Cool.
Satoshi Stream sent us 5,552 sats through Fountain, and he says, in terms of amount, I like these very conversational boosts.
Yeah.
In terms of amount of boosts, Dave Jones has second place for Satoshi's.stream podcasts. Adam takes 8th place.
What?
If at Dave is the same Dave too, it's first place for Dave. Boom!
Boost! I'm a loser. But is that in amount or frequency?
Both. No, you're talking about your 8th place? I think that was amount.
Okay. But I think I send a lot of boosts.
One thing is certain. I am a master of boosting. Clearly.
I give up. So people, you need to support us with more because Dave is clearly funding the entire network.
Since day one, I might add.
Yes.
All built on Dave's money.
It does feel like that a little bit, and I'm a bit concerned about you. Do we need to have a boost evention?
I've boost evented myself. I've down regulated.
Oh, you mean Melissa beat you over the head and said, "What are all these charges?"
I prefer to say that I did it to myself, even though she had something to say about it.
Tina even asked me, she said, "How many boosts do you really send?" I'm like, I don't know. It's circular, baby. I don't know. It's moving around.
It's internet tokens.
Yes, exactly. It's internet money. Exactly.
Mike Caden, he of Red Circle, sent us 22 Satsro Ducks. He says, premature quackulation. Nice. I see it.
That's hilarious.
Niall sent us 101. He says, great comment. Okay.
All right. Thank you. We aim to please.
Yes. I thought it was too.
Yeah.
Ron Plouffe.
Now, can I just say something? If we ever implement the timelines, then, you could, in your interface, click on that and it would say, oh, this is exactly where he boostogrammed, and we would know what he was talking about.
Well, see, we had this such an excellent idea of putting a link to this timestamp where you could just click on it and listen to it.
Does that work?
It absolutely does work. Well, except I'm too lazy to actually do it. So
is that in Helipad too?
No, it's not exposed in Helipad. That's a good idea. I should expose that.
Expose it, Dave Jones. Expose it.
I set you up.
Yeah. That's called being a podcaster. This is the Dave that's the podcaster. Who is a good podcaster?
Ron Plouffe sent us 211,200 sats.
What? Holy moly. I'm going to roll out the big baller for him.
Baller, shot caller, 20-inch blades on the Impala.
Boost.
This a 100x rush boost as a thanks to Dave for helping me hear my first pew. Griddle Cakes radio podcast, exploring the lost art of audio storytelling since 2005.
Griddle Cakes Lost Audio Podcast?
Griddle Cakes radio podcast.
Oh, I know Griddle Cakes. I think they've been around forever.
Ron Plouffe? Do you know Ron Plouffe?
I know his brother David.
David? Okay.
Plouffe, wasn't he a speechwriter for Obama?
No,
he's a different guy. Griddle Cakes Radio sounds very familiar to me.
Thank you for the mega
yes,
rush
thank you
boost.
so much for that support.
Killer. Floridian Slips sent us 5,000 sats through Fountain, and he says, thanks for assisting on podcastindex.social, Dave. Boost!
Yo, boost.
Boost! Let's see, 3 more. Nicholas Bunter. This got a little dots over the top of the U, so I'm going to say Bunter.
Bunter.
Nicholas Bunter.
Yes, his brother is Gunter.
1,000 sats through Breeze, and he says, boosting for podcasting 2.0, heart.
Aw.
Fat streamer.
Heart back at you.
We love you too. Sir Doug sent 4,400 sats through Fountain, and he says, boost.
Yo.
Boost. We're at the end of the delivery.
The comic strip blogger donation.
Comic strip blogger, 10,033 sats through Podfriend, and he says, hi, Dave and Adam. Thank you for your service to podcasting, and if your listeners want to hear latest news about artificial intelligence, they're invited to listen to AI.cooking, bi-weekly podcast spoken by Gregory William Forsyth Foreman from Kent. Yo!
Yo! Thank you, comic strip blogger.
We got some monthlies. Cameron Rose gave us $25. Jeremy New, $5.
Thank you.
Podverse, $50. Mitch Downey, $10. Chris Charabarak, $10. Terry Keller, $5. And I added this little bit in here that I wanted to say. If you have any ability to donate to anything extra, it would be good to go and donate to things like NATube that Alex is running out of his own pocket, and podcastsocial.org from John running that stuff out of his own pocket. It's just I would like to just make it clear that there's a lot of people paying for stuff out of their own pocket, and it's always good to support them if you can. That's it.
What a passionate plea, Dave.
Oh, thank you. And it's Charabarak.
Yes.
Yes. Sorry.
I have to sneeze.
Right,
Hold on.
Go for it.
Excuse me.
Nice.
I considered muting it, but I'm like, no, why let a good sneeze go to waste?
You had a nice new microphone and you just destroyed it.
John Spurlock, man, you are a gem, and we're very, very fortunate and blessed to have you inside the group. And I really, really enjoyed sparring with Spurlock a bit today.
Sparring with Spurlock.
I think it's exciting. I think one of the cool things about this community is that everyone's. I think what Dave said a while ago is that we're here because we're passionate about it, right? We're here because we have to be here. No one's paying us to be here. So I think it's going to be really interesting to see what happens over the next few months. And, I appreciate all you guys do, and keep going. Yeah.
And do you want to just wrap it up a bit with your podcastsocial.org, just so we can send people
I'm sure
there?
Anyone listening to this podcast is probably already familiar, but I would basically say the podcastsocial.org site is just a quick overview site for everyone in the podcasting ecosystem to learn about the new tag now that it's going to be in the next phase. So now's the time to get hyped and excited about it. And then for app developers, there's a few components. So if you want to read ActivityPub comments, there's a NPM package called ThreadCap out there that's free to use, open source. And then if you're an app that wants to do that nice integration we were talking about from the mobile app, you're going to need to have a server. So I have an open source server component that basically you can use to do that.
And that's
called minipub.dev.
Yeah.
Yep.
Can you, John, send me, and we talked about this on the dev meeting, but I think Martin may have forgotten. Can you send me like a sample output of ThreadCap? Because I'm porting it to PHP, and I really just
can I ask what ThreadCap is?
It's just a way to take a snapshot of an ActivityPub convo, right? So you take the root comment, and then some program needs to go and enumerate, what are the replies? What are the replies to that reply?
Mm-hmm.
You get it? And then at the end, you're just left with like a threaded JSON object, basically. So it makes people that are used to just dealing with like a single JSON file, hopefully makes it a little easier to integrate. ActivityPub is not that hard to use, but it's a little messy because like RSS, like everyone does things a little differently. So ThreadCap kind of
no kidding.
Papers over some of that stuff. Yeah.
Can you send me a sample output though of like just what it looks like? Because I think it's going to be easier than trying to go line by line through your code and try to sort of port it. Then if I could just aim for a target of what the output's supposed to look like.
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Are you saying the documentation is not good enough?
I would not say it that way. No. What I would say is that I'm terrible at JavaScript. That would be the way I would describe it.
Yeah, I would say things are very early days on this, right? So anyone that has any feedback on any of the projects that I'm doing or anything like that, and I think Guilherme actually was going back and forth. Podstation is doing yeoman's work of like filing bugs against Mastodon and getting some of those fixed.
Oh, dynamite!
So he's been doing really good work. So I'll definitely integrate whatever he's finding into the minipub documentation. I actually have some example. If people want to not use minipub, but just want to do it themselves, I even have some documents on like, here's what Mastodon comes back with. Here's what Pleroma comes back with. So that might be of interest to developers that are kind of like me and want to do everything themselves.
Yeah.
Sure seems like
party code.
Sure seems like ActivityPub is a winner. The stuff we're doing with it. I mean, it just seems like it's a big thing overall for decentralized, whatever it is, the whole world is kind of building.
Yeah, we just need tools like ThreadCap where people like James can just have a tool to output this stuff into a usable format on the side and not have to do all the guts implementation of ActivityPub. We need a next layer up of things like that.
Abstraction.
So, yeah, because that's one of the reasons I'm trying to do ThreadCap into PHP is because we just need more of those layers of output.
Yeah, that would be useful for a Podfriend, I think, too, right? I think his backend is PHP. So that would be useful for him, too.
Thanks to all of our supporters with your time, your talent, your treasure. Thanks to, everyone who supported this. Stephen B., thank you very much for your guidance. Alex Gates is hanging out in the chat room. Who else is in there though? Chad F. Yeah, it's our cast. Sir Bemrose making sure we don't screw up the chat. Appreciate that.
Stephen B. Spencer.
And I'll have the value block stuff sorted for the next episode. Thank you both for your patience with me and for your passion. Huh?
Yeah.
That's the passion I'm talking about right there. All right. Thanks, guys. Have a great weekend.
All right. See you, man.
Okay. That's it for Podcasting 2.0, episode number 77. We'll be back with another board meeting next week. See you then. Take care, everybody. Have a good weekend.
Listening to Podcasting 2.0. Visit podcastindex.org for more information.